Hi, folks. We're going to get started right away. If you'd like to take your seats, we'll begin very shortly. Thank you.
Good morning.
Oh my God, it's Stephen Lecce.
Oh my God, it's Lisa MacLeod. Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephen Lecce. I serve as the Member of Provincial Parliament for the riding of King Vaughan and the Premier's Parliamentary Assistant. And I am proud to report that it is morning again here in the province of Ontario. And a great morning to be joining Conservatives from across the Federation at Manning. I'm proud to introduce a leader that governs with conviction, with common sense, and a deep fidelity to this country. These are the foundational values that define Premier Doug Ford. His tenure as Premier is marked by action, decisive action, to move the province forward, to unshackle entrepreneurship and private enterprise in this province, and action to put the national interest first. It is this Premier who understands the interconnected reality that prosperity in the West means jobs and growth here in the East. After all, it was Premier Ford who unilaterally waived Ontario's veto in order to support pipeline expansion across the country. It was this Premier. Thank you, Minister Bethlenfalvy. It was this Premier, who stood with Saskatchewan's Premier Moe to build a national consensus to oppose higher taxes on families, on businesses, and the future prosperity of our province. Joining Conservative leaders from New Brunswick to Manitoba, they delivered a powerful message to our Prime Minister: axe the carbon tax. Friends, this Premier knows what it means to create a job, to balance his books, to live within his means, and to follow through on his word to the people. After a decade of economic darkness under the Liberals, he is putting those values into the driver's seat, driven by common sense, by conviction and compassion, in an unwavering sense of service to our country. So friends, I ask you to join me in welcoming one of the worst nightmares for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, right after Jody Wilson-Raybould. Is it too soon? Too soon. My friends, Doug Ford truly is for lower taxes. He is for balanced budgets, and he is for the people of this province. So join me in welcoming Ontario's 26th Premier, Doug Ford, and our moderator, Danielle Smith.
Thank you. Wow, what a good crowd. What a great crowd. Well, thank you. Thank you for such a warm welcome, my friends. And thank you to Stephen Lecce, my parliamentary assistant. You're an absolute champion. Stephen is one of our absolute rock stars down at Queen's Park. There's a couple more rock stars sitting in the front here, Minister MacLeod and Minister Beth Vivaldi. See, Peter takes care of all the money that goes out, and Vic takes care of all the money that goes in, and Lisa, you're taking care of every social issue there is in the whole province, so both doing a great job. I couldn't ask for a better team than Stephen Lecce and the rest of our all-star MPPs, a team that is bringing change to Ontario. Thank you as well to the Manning Centre for inviting me here today. You do so much good work, bringing forward great ideas, building networks, training people for the future. And of course, a special thank you to Preston Manning. One of the founding fathers of modern conservative movement here in Canada. People called Preston a populist when he was in politics, and now they're calling me a populist as well. To me, to me, that's just a label, and I know a few things about labels. I actually used to run a label company. If you want to call me a populist, sure, but I call it listening to the people. Not the expensive lobbyists, and those lobbyists are expensive, not the full-time protesters, not the activists. I listen to the people. Hard-working men and women, seniors, new Canadians, small business owners, people looking for a job, people who have better things to do than talk about politics all day. People who expect you to pick up the phone when they call you with an issue. It's very simple. They call you, you pick up the phone. That's how I learned to do politics. You go straight to the people, no middleman. My friends, it's how I was raised. It's how my dad did it under Mike Harris. It's how my brother Rob did it. It's how my nephew Michael downtown at City Hall. Absolutely, Rob was a champion. It's downtown at City Hall. My nephew Michael's doing it. And it's how I do it. You listen to the people. Do you know what you get when you leave too many PhDs, activists, economists, and bankers in a room? You end up with a job-killing carbon tax. These guys, they're unbelievable on how far they'll go to sell the Liberal carbon tax. It's just astonishing to me. I say a carbon tax increases the risk of a carbon tax recession, and they all go absolutely nuts. But that's just me talking like a businessman with a little bit of common sense. If you make it more expensive to hire new workers, if you scare investments away, if you take money out of the people's pockets, and if you make everything more expensive, that's going to hurt the economy. Friends, I'm telling you right now, our government is going to fight the Trudeau Liberal carbon tax with every tool we have at our disposal. We're going to fight for the truckers, the waitresses, the seniors, factory workers, and small business owners who just can't afford to pay more in their gas, home heating bills, and everything they go to the grocery store, everything is made of carbon. So if you ask me, is that a populist thing to do? My friends, I don't know, but you better believe it's the right thing to do. That's how our government operates. Promises made, promises kept. It's that simple. We said we'd clean up the hydro mess. The Ontario Liberals left with their friends. A whole bunch of insiders let Ontario hydro rates almost triple, while Kathleen Wynne's $6 million man and his cronies on the hydro board, they all gave themselves big, huge raises and increases. Well, guess what? He's gone, he's done. The board's gone, they're done, and hydro rates are coming down. We canceled the cap and trade carbon tax. That's 4.5 cents a liter on gas, saving the average family $260 a year with their home heating bills. We told the people we would freeze license fees, and hunting fees, and fishing fees, end the Drive Clean scam program, and scrap the Green Energy Act, and I call it the Green Energy Scam. Rather than kill jobs by hiking up minimum wage, how about the government stops taxing minimum wage workers instead? With our LIFT tax credit, we've cut taxes for 1.1 million low-income workers. The Liberals let patients languish in hallways. We said enough is enough. Instead of spending more on CEOs and bureaucracy, we're centering around healthcare, around the patient. We inherited a $15 billion deficit. We said would put Ontario on the path to balance and no frontline workers would lose their jobs. On April 11th, we'll deliver our budget. And I'll give you a little spoiler. It's going to be a budget that consists of promises made, promises kept. So, so if you want to ask me what kind of conservative I am, it's simple. I'm someone who keeps his promises, who fights for the little guy, and will always, always stand up for what's right. It's how we're turning Ontario around, and come this fall election, it's how I hope our Conservative friends and the federal Conservatives turn Canada around as well. I thank you and God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks,
You got it. All right. Now, I am in the media, but I used to be a leader of a conservative political party. So I'm going to, I failed at it. And so I'm going to try to get some advice here. That's the spirit in which I'm asking some of these questions. And thank you so much for the work that you're doing in Ontario, but I think it's going to have an impact in the country as well. Let's talk about you being a progressive conservative, because I think that people like Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have done a lot to brand themselves as progressive. It's kind of a dirty word in Western Canada. Why is it that that label doesn't hurt the progressive conservatives in Ontario?
Well, I don't really believe in labels. I'm so proud to be the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario, but I sat here last year and before I was elected, and I remember the person interviewing me asked me, progressive, conservative, and I said, I'm for the people. It's very simple. We have voters that traditionally vote NDP, traditionally vote Liberal, and we have some fiscal conservatives, and that's how we ended up winning. Just because in the past they voted for NDP, it drives them crazy when they get their hydro bill and it's gone up 3 times the amount. When they go see their taxes go up, when 300,000 jobs left this province. That's what's frustrating to people. It doesn't matter if they're traditional NDP or Liberal voters or Conservative. They wanted a change, and we're providing the change that they want.
Let's talk about the base, because we all know that the social conservative activists tend to be the hardest working, they come out, they're at all of the conventions, and they will work their heart out, but they also want to see some policy agenda implemented. How do you keep the social conservative in the tent as you're trying to reach out to more centrist voters?
Well, to get elected here in Ontario or in Canada, you have to have a big tent. And no matter what party you're from, you have to listen to all the views. And you can't go too far right, too far left, but you have to be open to listening to people's views and most importantly, respect their views. And I think most social conservatives that I talk to, they understand that. They understand that, first of all, you have to get elected and then implement your policies, but you have to have a balance there. If you don't have a balance, it's not going to work.
Let me ask it the other way. How have you attracted progressives without them being concerned about some of the more socially conservative views in the party? We're just fighting this out in Alberta right now, and you seem to have managed to keep everybody in the tent. How have you managed to attract progressives?
You just make sure, you listen to the people. When people call you, I give out my phone number, and I know it drives my staff absolutely crazy, But you you talk to people, and you share their views and listen to them. You take the good parts out of every idea there is, and there's always good parts to any conversation that you can bring into the tent, per se.
Tell us a bit about your leadership style, because we've seen some conservative leaders go slow once they get elected, and others go fast. I would put you in the fast lane. You seem to be wanting to make your agenda to stick pretty quickly. What's your philosophy behind that?
It's a very simple philosophy. I take the business approach. We're moving at lightning speed right now. We inherited a bankrupt province that we thought we were getting a $4 or $5 billion deficit. They were cooking the books, the Liberals. They were ignoring the Auditor General, and found out, surprise, surprise, we had a $15 billion deficit. We're the largest subnational debt in the entire world. Think of that, my friends, the entire world. And our fourth largest ministry is called the Ministry of Debt, interest on our debt. So we're paying over $12 billion a year in servicing that debt. And you can't survive if you're constantly in debt. And on social values, making sure that we give the 1.1 million low-income folks, anyone earning under $30,000 a year, they're paying zero tax. It's $860 back into their pocket. That gives them a little bit of a lift, a little bit of a hand up. And I think that's the values. You can't help those people unless you take care of your balance sheet. It's very simple.
When people look back on the Premier Doug Ford legacy, and you've implemented all your priorities, whether that'll take you 2 terms or 3 terms or 4 terms, not sure how many, what are they going to see? What do you want to be known for at the end? What are your priorities that you absolutely want to have completed?
Well, I want, and it's not about Doug Ford, it's about the team, first of all, because I wouldn't be around without the team. And when I say the team, I always tell our caucus, we have a great caucus and a great all-star team, and Lisa and Peter, they've heard me say that, and so Stephen. We have a better all-star team, and I'm looking at part of our all-star team right out here. The people that are out there banging on the doors, putting up signs, raising money. And so moving forward, we have to make sure that we leave a legacy of prosperity and growth, and the province is thriving right now. The numbers came out, employment numbers were staggering. So under the Liberals, under 15 years, we lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs. In the last 3 months alone, we ended up creating the environment. I want to emphasize that government doesn't create jobs, by the way. When government creates jobs, we're all in trouble. So we created an environment for companies to thrive by getting rid of hundreds of thousands of regulations that we have here, and cutting the red tape and lowering taxes. That's what makes the economy thrive. So last month, the job numbers came out and created 37,000 new jobs in February, 41,000 jobs in January, 17,000 jobs in December, and a total, that's 100,000, but totally, since we were elected, we created over 132,000 jobs in 8 months. Those numbers to me are staggering. Because when you give companies certainty, and the companies have certainty, they want to reinvest. They'll invest in their companies, they'll grow, and when they invest into capital, they invest into equipment and people. And when companies thrive, people thrive. And when people thrive, communities thrive. And when the communities thrive, the province thrives. And we're thriving right now. We're going to keep going.
Okay, so that's the revenue side. Let's talk about some things you're going to do on the expenditure side. Healthcare, of course, is a problem for every province. Are you going to take some efforts to try to reform it?
Well, we're doing it right now, actually. When I traveled across the province, my friends, we've taken a different approach in healthcare than any other government. Nothing's worse than a bunch of politicians sitting at Queen's Park telling the frontline healthcare workers, be it the docs or the nurses or frontline healthcare workers, how to do their job. And when I visited so many hospitals across the province, the docs and the nurses would come up to me and say, Doug, here's a solution. We can fix it. So what we did, we let the docs come up with the ideas and the nurses. We put together round tables. Dr. Ruben Devlin, he's heading that up. I have the best health minister that you could ever ask for, Christine Elliott. She's incredible person. And I'll tell you a story. During the election, I'm running all over the place, and my mother fell ill and brought her to the hospital. So I went over and obviously I was there, and she was stuck in that hallway for 5 hours. 5 hours sitting there with stretchers all the way down the hallway. And from that day on, we're saying we're ending hallway healthcare. We live in Ontario, and we have people stuck in hallways right across this province. So when we looked into it and we talked to the doctors and nurses, they told us very simply, there's a lot of patients in there taking up beds that could be freed up. And I'll give you an example, long-term care. Long-term care beds, there's a waiting list of 32,000 people for long-term care beds. And those folks are in the hospitals, and it costs 3 times as much to take care of someone in a hospital than it would in a long-term care bed. So we've already created over 6,000 new long-term care beds. I believe the minister announced 1,100 yesterday as well. We're going to create 15,000 new long-term care beds in the first 5 years, another 15,000 in the following 5 years. But that's just one area. And it's not our idea. It's the doctor's idea. It's the nurses' ideas. And they have a tremendous amount of ideas that they're bringing to the table.
Let's talk about immigration, because I know that you've sent a bill to Justin Trudeau to pay for some of the additional costs, or maybe that was John Tory who did. There's a lot of additional costs that are coming to Ontario as a result of the illegal migrants coming across the border. What do you think should be done about that?
Well, first of all, there's international rule, I say. You go anywhere in the world, and let's say you go to a restaurant, movie theater, no matter where you are in the world, you stand in line. You don't jump the line, because if you jump the line, all heck breaks loose. And that's what's happening right now. We have some folks coming over here, paying to come over here, and by the way, I'd do the same if I lived in certain countries. I'd swim across the ocean to come to a great country like Canada. But they're landing in LaGuardia or in New York, they're hopping on a bus, they're going up to Lacolle, Quebec, and they're walking across the border. Meanwhile, there's a customs crossing right here, and a kilometer down the street, there's just an open border that you walk across. And do you know who's frustrated the most? Is our base. New Canadians overwhelmingly supported my brother, supported myself, and I'll break down a brick wall for any new Canadian. And the new Canadians are ticked off, and the reason they're ticked off is because their brother, mother, sister is in this line, waiting to get in. And they've been waiting to get into this country for 3, 4, 5 years. And all of a sudden someone jumps the line, and as soon as they jump the line, they're getting whatever, $2,000, another $1,800, free healthcare, free housing in Toronto. We're putting thousands of these folks up in hotels. And we're asking the federal government, we don't have the infrastructure to handle it. They said they'd pay, they owe us $200 million, and they have to pay up. But he's just absolutely ignoring it. I just want to tell you, I'm pro-immigration, and I think when we talked in the back there, I was telling Danielle, we have a problem here in Ontario, and I'll tell you the problem. The economy's on fire right now, and everywhere we're going, everywhere the ministers are going and our team's going, every company, no matter if it's skilled or unskilled, high tech, low tech, Everyone needs people. Everyone. We have more jobs right now than we have people to fill them. So even on the part-time workers that work in the agriculture industry, I actually had to write the federal government a letter saying we have to increase the temporary work program. They'll come over 3 months, because as I talk to the agriculture industry back in Leamington or down in Niagara, they're saying, Doug, I can't survive. Our business can't survive because I can't hire the people. We need people.
I'll let my friends know that back in Alberta when I'm back on the air on Monday. Let's talk about another panel discussion that we're going to be having later about carbon dioxide. So you're opposed to the carbon tax, but what's your plan to reduce greenhouse gases?
Well, it's very, very simple. You don't need a carbon tax. You know, the carbon tax is a tax with the word carbon in front of it, and it does absolutely nothing for the environment. Nothing at all. It really doesn't. So we have a great plan. We're all ready with the Paris Agreement in 2030. They want you to hit 30% reductions. My friends, we're leading the country. We're at 22% with 11 years to go, and that's my argument to the Prime Minister. Why do we need a carbon tax when we're hitting our targets without it? And I can tell you, the big polluters, we're coming after them hard. We're going to come after them hard to make sure that they curtail the pollution that they have. But in saying that, you want to put a burden on the backs of businesses, on the backs of families. Everything they buy in the stores, the price is going up. Driving little Johnny to the hockey rink, it's going to cost you more. Everything you do is going to cost more. It's very simple. And you can't change the game rules halfway through the game. And that's what the Prime Minister did. When we were in Montreal, I said, we're going to hit our 30%. We're leading the country. And he said, well, you might have to do a little more. And he plays this pick and choose game. Maybe this province doesn't have to do as much. You have to do more. If you're going to set the rules, set them equally right across the board. But I can tell you one thing: we're going to fight this carbon tax. We're going to court, I think, in a few weeks, which is great. We're going to challenge them, and we have a great ally, fabulous ally, with Scott Moe, Premier of Saskatchewan. He's a champion, Premier Higgs. And I'll tell you, my friends, I can't wait till my buddy Jason Kenney becomes Premier of Ontario. Alberta, I should say.
We did start a little bit late, but I don't want to go over because I know many of you want to attend the carbon tax rally on Parliament Hill. But let me just ask one last question. Of course, since the environment that we're in, we're heavily influenced by the United States. We see increasing polarization. What is it that Conservative leaders can do to reduce polarization? Do you have a role to play?
Well, I think we all do. And you're talking about the U.S. and the president down there and so on and so forth. You know something? He has his hands full. And by the way, we've been in politics a lot longer than the president has. But in saying that, people always say, oh, you're like Trump. No, I'm Doug Ford. I'm not Donald Trump. You know, I'm not. But let's, and that's not a knock against him or anyone, but let's look at the policies. Forget the person. You know, I had a business in Chicago. Well, put it in trust and so on and so forth, but I saw how the economy was going, and all of a sudden he gets elected and he cuts all the regulations, cuts the red tape. And by the way, when it comes to regulations, when you cut regulations, it's even better than giving a tax cut because it gets things moving. He ended up lowering the corporate tax rate down from 35%, some of the highest in the country, down to 21%. Ours here in Canada, we always used to have an advantage, but we're still at about 25% or so. He's dropped it down to 21%. There's hundreds of billions of dollars, probably $1 trillion offshore in the US. All of a sudden, all this money is flowing in. You look at Wisconsin or Illinois, Wisconsin's 2.6% unemployment. And when you hit 4%, it's like zero unemployment. So down in the US, it's absolutely booming. And just my opinion, when the US is booming, Canada's booming. And if we were a standalone country, when I was in Washington, I met with the governors and I really informed them and educated them. We're an economic powerhouse, Ontario. I mean, in North America, I should say. We're the #1 trading partner to 19 states. So So we're their #1 customer, #2 to 9 other states. And if we were a standalone country, we would be the U.S.'s 3rd largest trading partner. We do these are some staggering numbers, $350 billion a year in two-way trade with the United States. So we got our message out, and they want to make this deal. They want to make sure they cross the T's, dot the I's, but you couldn't ask for a better neighbor anywhere in the world than the United States of America.
Well, maybe the one thing you have in common, though, is media coverage. I mean, I would say he gets 99% negative media coverage. I would say on balance, you get more negative than positive. Why do you think that is?
Well, you know, that's just the media. No matter if it's in the U.S. or up here, they're far left. You know, they want to spin it.
Present company excluded, of course.
But guess what? Now there's social media. So we're circumventing the media through our social media. And we have ONN, go online and look at ONN, Ontario News Now. And I'll tell you, during the election, they drove the media crazy because they want to take what you said and clip and chop and twist it around. But we went direct to the people. And they know they're losing the battle because the numbers, they told me, we had Lindsay Van Stone as, we had it Ford Nation Live, we had to change it once we became in government. But the numbers they told me, Lindsay during the campaign had 18 million, that's 18 million 30-second hits. Those are staggering numbers. That's more than Global, CTV, City, all of them combined. And it drove them crazy because they couldn't spin the message. And I don't know how many of you run home at 6 o'clock to turn on the nightly news. It doesn't happen as often now. They go to social media and they see what's happening.
Do you think it's helping you to get your message out, or is it hurting you with the media?
It's helping us. The media is always going to take their stance. And, you know, I get along with them one-on-one. I really do. I like them, but they're just, it's like the cheese slipped off the cracker with these guys, and they just went far left.
Ladies and gentlemen, Premier Doug Ford. All right, we're going to let him get on with his day because I know he's very busy. Lunch is going to be served in the Bistro, Confederation Room 2 and 3. The carbon tax rally takes place on Parliament Hill, starts at noon, so those who want to do that can get over there. And we will reconvene in this room for our next panel on fake news, new media, and government intervention at 1:15 p.m. We'll see you back then.
Thank you, everyone.